Even world-class players sometimes end up in significantly worse positions after the opening. And the game we are going to look at, you will see the black player Fabiano Caruana be completely destroyed by the Ukrainian grandmaster Andrei Volokitin. So this position emerged from a French defense, and the way black is supposed to play here is actually c takes d4, c takes d4, and now a more or less unusual move for the French defense. Bishop to b4 check, and after bishop d2, just knight g to e7. Here, black is absolutely fine. There's no danger whatsoever. Instead, in the game, Fabiano Caruana played the very natural-looking knight to h6, a very normal move, usually, in the advanced variation of the French defense. But here, it turns out to be inaccurate, due to the following line of Andrei Volokitin. He plays knight to c2, and here you see why this knight was initially put to a3. On c2, it's providing some coverage, some additional coverage for the d4 pawn, and now the bishop can move to d3. C takes d4, c takes d4, knight f5, putting more pressure on this pawn on d4. It is defended 3 times and also attacked 3 times, so black is not in time to take it yet. And white plays bishop to d3. Obviously, black is not allowed to take on d4 with knight takes d4 because white simply exchanges everything in d4 and then plays bishop b5 check, a discovery attack, which wins the queen. This is a very typical idea for the French defense. In the French defense. So, in the game, a better move than played had been bishop to d7, but in the game, Caruana played bishop to e7. And here, white castles, and white has very clear intentions. Black plays bishop to d7, and now comes pawn to g4. This knight, now, you might think can take on d4, but actually it is still not working. Why should black be able to take? Well, now there's a bishop here, so exchanging everything and playing bishop b5 is obviously not working because the queens are traded and white just lost a huge amount of material. But another tactics is working here, and this is bishop e3, a pin. You might think, okay, but black can unpin. But that's only half of the story. There are currently 2 attackers on d4 and 2 defenders, this and this. So we play b4 with black, attack the bishop, and black is in no time to take on c2 because bishop takes c5, attacks the queen, and the knight on c2 is still hanging. Black has no time to move his knight. He must rescue the queen. This is also losing. Therefore, black decided not to take on d4 very wisely. Knight h6 was played instead, and now you see why this bishop on e7 is actually badly placed. If we go back, here bishop to d7, short castle, and now let's say a move like a5, g4 doesn't make much sense now because of bishop to c5. So actually by not playing a5, in the game Caruana allowed b4. Here, in contrast, it's not working because it's covered. So here, black is simply winning a central pawn and has a decisive advantage and should go on and win the game. So this is simply not working. Instead, king to h1 is strong here, and this is a position that Volokitin has played multiple times, and as much as I know, he also had a game with king h1 here. Let's go back. So this had been the better option, but bishop e7 was played, and therefore the black player doesn't have this tactical idea of taking on d4. So the knight must go to h6. This is a very unpleasant position, especially against a very strong attacking player such as Andrei Volokitin. So now pawn to h3, stabilizing this g4 pawn, which was attacked. And you might think, okay, but black's kingside pawn structure looks a little bit weird. The pawns are already advanced. They might be weak. Well, white is in full control of the center, and this is one of the key aspects when you look into things such as king safety. Additionally, you can see that black's pieces are not attacking here, because here the bishop is limited by the e6 pawn, very typical for the French. This bishop on e7 isn't really attacking anything here. You can say this knight is doing something, but on the other hand, this knight is horribly placed and is lacking support. This knight has no future on h6. So black should really think how he's solving the problem. In the game, black castled queenside in a desperate attempt to solve the problems. Then came rook to b1 with the intention of playing b4. So you see, even in these lines, b4 is a very typical move. And actually, white could have played b4 anyway without preparing it with rook b1, because here taking it, this is incredibly risky. Rook b1, the rook is on the open file, or semi-open file. The bishop here on b4 is attacked twice, defended twice, so and a3 is already in the air because the bishop on b4 is pinned to the queen. So a very unpleasant position, and so here in this position, black is suffering from a disadvantage of space, a big disadvantage of space, and his pieces are not well coordinated and just lack the space to be well coordinated. So as said, rook to b1, let's continue with the game. King b8, a very typical move. When you castle queenside, you usually also go king to b8, and especially here with the open c file, king b8 might be a clever move in similar positions. And now comes b4. This was prepared. Knight to g8. As mentioned, this knight on h6 doesn't look very happy. Bishop to d2. Developing the pieces. And h5. Now suddenly black is trying to break open the white kingside pawn structure, but this is not going to work. White can simply ignore this and play b5, attack a piece. And here it's actually very, very difficult to find a good move. The problem is after h takes g4, they simply b takes c6, sorry. And after queen takes c6, you take back here, and now you see the semi-open file. Very dangerous, and black has lots of issues. White will just get the pieces over to the queen side, and black will be dealing with a decisive mating attack. Let's look into things like this. This is still not working. Here, for example, knight to b4. The queen is attacked, so no time to take on g4. And if this is taken, then simply rook takes, and you bring in the pieces. Taking on g4, doesn't really work. You play queen to b1 or queen b3, might be a little bit more active. And then the other rook joins the game, and this looks like a very horrible position. White has lots of space to attack, and black has no space to organize a defense. If black could somehow create something on the king side, he would be fine, but he's simply not in time to do so. For example, rook to h5, then comes rook to c1, and let's say he doubles here. Now simply rook takes c6 already wins the game, because rook h1 check, king g2 takes, and the sacrifice material doesn't pay off. It's simply not working. White is completely winning here. He is simply a piece up, a bishop up. So very important to play king g2 in my opinion. King g2 is the only move, so we have to play it. And rook takes b1 here. Simply nothing to win. So what followed in the game? In the game, knight a5 was played, and now there's a very strong move, which is queen to e1. The problem is now this knight has no squares to go, and the question is, what is black supposed to do? Actually, you might think, okay, the knight can go to c4, but this is simply not working because of bishop takes c4, d takes c4, and bishop a5, and the queen is trapped. There is no square for the queen, and white is in no rush. This position will remain on the queen side as it is. Black has no options to get out of this. So after queen to e1, black played on a couple of moves, but he's simply a piece down. Now very creative by Volokitin, knight to b4, threatening the check on a6 and winning the queen. Of course, black doesn't want to do that, to allow that, so he doesn't have time to take on a5. There's simply no time. King a8, and now knight a6, attacking the queen, and now Volokitin will use the c file to enter the position, and here the game was over after rook takes e7. A very beautiful move. The threat is simply knight c7 check with a lost queen, and a very beautiful finish for this attack. So let's go back and see the decisive moments. So it all started when Caruana went wrong in the opening, which was here. So knight h6 was a little bit too optimistic, despite the fact that it's a typical French move. It's not working here. And after knight c2, white is slightly better. And here, bishop d3 is working. And as we said, bishop e7 is simply not good. A move such as bishop d7, castling, and a5 had been much better. A very interesting aspect here is, why not bishop e7, castle, and here a5? And here the problem again is that after g4, the knight cannot take, because of the idea we already discussed in the analysis, bishop b5 check, and the queen is discovered here and is lost. Yeah, so bishop to d7 was played, and here the knight ended up on h6, and as we saw, it stayed there for a while, and here there was really nothing to rescue. Black tried to create some counterplay, but Volokitin didn't fall for anything and simply managed to win the knight by trapping the queen. A very beautiful move. Queen to e1. In general, a very beautiful game. It must be mentioned that this game was a Blitz game from 2014 from the World Chess Championship, from the Blitz World Chess Championship. So bear in mind that this was a very fast format, and the black player here, Fabiano Caruana, didn't have a lot of time to find the particular ideas in every position. And Volokitin, and this must be said about him, he is so well prepared in his openings, and when you look into the database, you will see he is very repetitive with the stuff he is doing, and he has a very deep knowledge about the variations he's playing, and a great attacking player. Thank you for your attention. If you like this video, hit the like button and feel free to subscribe, and let me know in the comment section what you think about this game. And if you want to see more attacking games, check the first comment. See you in the next video.